welcome to the third episode of Growing Pains Podcast. I'm here with Joey Szatmary. He is the owner of Lion's Den Gym in Pennsylvania. He's also a badass weightlifter and strongman at the same time. So welcome to the podcast, Joey.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me on.
Yes, I appreciate you coming down all the way to Canada via Skype.
Yes. Soon. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm going to get back to the Niagara Falls, and I'm going to meet you actually on your side.
At the falls. Well, it's funny because Niagara Falls is my wife's favorite place on earth. We got engaged there. We go there, it seems, every day. She wants to go there, so I'm there all the time. But
how far is it for you to get there?
What's that?
How far is it for you to get there from where you're at?
Probably about 45 minutes.
Oh, that's so nice.
We're close.
Wow.
Yeah, we're there all the time.
8 hours for me.
Oh, really? Yeah, well, I
yeah.
guess so. But anyways, before we start, people probably don't know who you are. Like, I know you have 9,000 followers on Instagram, which is a lot more than me, so I feel kind of insecure. But could you let people know a little bit about your weightlifting and strongman background? Because I know you snatch a lot of weight.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, growing up, I mean, I was always an athlete, which was nice. So I always had that athletic background. I was a lacrosse player, and primarily football and lacrosse were my two sports, but I wrestled. I have a martial arts background. Like, I have a black belt in martial arts, which is kind of cool. I'm nowhere near as flexible as I used to be, though, so that's embarrassing. Yeah, so then in high school from there, I went to a private school called Albright College, and I played a year of lacrosse there. But it was a small school, like super small, like smaller than my high school. And at first I thought that's where I wanted to be, because I was like, oh, great, one-on-one attention with, teachers, and it's a small, community. But by the end of the first week, I knew everybody, and it was like you go to the same place to eat it just got boring. So I knew at the end of my freshman year that wasn't where I wanted to be. I felt like I kind of was like, man, I wish I went to a bigger school. And during that time in my life, I was going through just a lot of craziness, kind of figuring myself out. I didn't know really who I wanted to be. I thought I was going to be an FBI agent. Like, everything I did at that point in my life, I was like, I want to be an FBI. I love criminal psychology, serial killer stuff. Like, I was like all about it. Wanted to get married, have a family, big house. And I just realized I had no idea who I wanted to be at one point. And to be 18 or 19, it's kind of scary. You know what I mean? You're like, whoa, what do I do with my life? So I came home, and I ended up getting a job at a food store, and I was making fruit trays. Like produce boy, cutting up watermelons, making baskets with them. And during that time period, I always loved training and going to the gym, and people would always ask me for tips in lifting, and I never really thought it would ever be a career of mine. But during that time I was working, somebody I knew was actually going to open up their own private gym. So they kind of reached out to me, and they were like, hey, do you want to start running some boot camps? So I thought it was a cool opportunity. So I started doing that part-time and kind of helped open up another gym, like tearing up the walls, the floor. And that was kind of a dirty experience of just business when I'm looking back at it. And then from there, I worked there for about 2 years. And I was going on and off with school too, back and forth. So I was doing part-time at community college and studying. At that point, it was still criminal psychology, but then I just dropped out. I was like, I want to do the training thing full-time, so I did that. And I realized in my heart that if I ever wanted to do something, I wanted to make it my own. And I kind of wanted to be the person who ran the business in my business, just because I feel like if you are in a business and you have other people involved, at some point somebody's not going to be happy, unless you're super, super close and you really understand that person. But for the most part, you'll know if you want to be a business owner. I guess it's just easy to say that. So I ended up being a pool man for a while. I took 2 years, and I was working on pools, and it was nowhere near the way they make it seem in any regards to being a pool man. Not at all. It was disgusting. I'm like hitting snakes out of pools and just muck work. Yeah, dead frogs. Man, it was just. I found a deer one time in a pool. It was gnarly. So that experience was the experience that said, man, I really love strength training. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that was my calling. But the whole time I was doing that job, any money I made overtime, I was actually buying some gym equipment, and I was living with my aunt and uncle at the time, and they had a 2-car garage. And what I noticed is after working 13-hour days for the pool business, it was really hard for me to get to the gym or drive to the gym where I wanted to train. So I said to myself, listen, any money I make in overtime, I'm going to put towards gym equipment and make a garage gym. So my aunt and uncle were amazing, and I was so grateful they let me do that. So I pretty much took their 2-car garage and turned it into a gym. So when I got done work, I'd go there and train. And at that point, it's just a pool thing and training myself. Now, over time, and this is, I got chlorine jugs I'm filling with rocks and water, you know what I mean? And I started making some Atlas stones, and I got some dumbbells and like backpacks loaded with just weights. But I would do it outside. So you see this guy, you know, at like 7 o'clock, 7:30 at night, walking down the street with chlorine jugs and a big Atlas stone and kegs, and people started looking at me, and, you know, they'd kind of be like, what is this? Something's going on with this dude. You know what I mean? Like, he is just crazy. He's out there in the middle of the night lugging all this stuff around. You know, there's no party. Where's he getting these kegs? You know, yeah. So I was doing that, and then little by little, people would come over, and they'd be like, hey, man, you know, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm training. You're more than welcome to hop in, you know? So a couple people started hopping in, and then I started getting more clients, and kind of, I mean, it was totally probably not legal, you know, but I'm just like working like this little business out of the garage, and I still think that this is funny. It's not funny, but it's funny. And I used to have kids get dropped off, like kids, like parents, their kids would, and you just see me like open the garage door, and these kids would come in, and then I'd close it, like, because it was cold in the winter. And I'm like, if I could only imagine what people are thinking, like in the neighborhood, just watching these kids come in, yeah, it was all good. It was all good. But,
nothing was going on.
Yeah, nothing's going on. We're just training, you know. But so that's kind of, I think, in the time span of 2 years with that garage gym, and I called it the grindhouse, just because, you know, whether it was raining or whether it was snowing, I know from strength camp, you're out pushing sleds in the rain and all that kind of stuff. That's what we did, you know, and I didn't know any other way, and the training was pretty hardcore. So it kind of just attracted a certain type of person, and that's still been really my niche market, was just those hardcore people who don't care, you know, if it's fancy schmancy or if we have air conditioning or heat. You know, I don't run it in the gym that I have now just because that's all we've ever known. But that kept building. I think I had over like 100-some people in that time span. And there's videos, like if you go back on the YouTube bar, there's like 15 people in this 2-car garage. And I think about it now, and I'm like, I don't even know how I was doing that, dude. It was just so crazy. But from there, I got a job part-time at another gym. And I ended up working out a deal where I could bring that stuff from the garage into their space, and I was training there. And that was okay for about 2 years, but then I really just came to the conclusion again, you know, it's like, if this is really what I want to do, you know, I got to just do it full time. So I put my 2 weeks in there, and at that point I'd already been looking at properties, which led to, you know, moving into my first space and then kind of get that whole ball rolling. But that was kind of the whole deal with the gym. And, you know, during that whole process, I was doing weightlifting meets and excelling pretty far at that. I was going to do nationals 2 years ago, but I ended up tearing my meniscus in the competition, and I ended up trying to just do the smart thing. I got the surgery. My knee feels fantastic now, so it all kind of worked out. But during that time period, just getting involved with different training systems. I was kind of doing a little bit of bodybuilding, then doing a little bit of strongman, and just trying to get by and trying to run a business, which, you know, if you know, it's just a lot, you know, and it's hard to get your training in and still do the same thing. So it was just really a time period of me finding myself from there. And then, so I mean, that's kind of what led up to me opening up my official gym.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I think people, especially nowadays, are really enamored with the idea of having a huge gym with top-of-the-line equipment and 200, 300 members, and everything's running smoothly. But what they don't realize is that to get to that place, you have to work with what you have. And if you're not willing to solve that problem that you have right in front of you, then you're probably not going to make it to that beautiful facility. So just hearing your story really reinforces that. And I think that can even start with like super small things in your life. Like, can you clean the kitchen? Can you take the garbage out? Can you do these little things? Can you train without any equipment? And then you can slowly start working your way up there. So I think just hearing your story it's a really important lesson for a lot of people to hear. And I know your first gym was called the Grindhouse, and you changed the name to Lion's Den, which is the gym you're in right now. What prompted that change? Because the Grindhouse is a pretty cool name.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Every time I told you it was a Grindhouse, I think it was like a coffee house. And I was like, no, like I do love coffee, but so if I ever do open up a coffee shop, it will be the Grindhouse, and I'll have a double meaning, which no one will probably. But yeah, so the change of the name, and it's kind of funny, but I've always kind of been looked at. This sounds bizarre, but as like a lion. Like even in my family, like I love the Lion King. I used to reenact the Lion King. It's just so bizarre. But in my family crest, there's lions too. So I have this tattoo on my shoulder, and it has a big lion head on it. And it's not one of those things where, like, it's been a part of me my whole life. It wasn't like, oh, I think I'm this lion. Like, it kind of was just always that way ever since I was a kid. And I feel like people these days are just like, yo, like, I want the lion tattoo. And I'm like, do you though? Like, do you want the lion tattoo? But really, like I said, is my gym attracts a certain kind of person. So I like to, there's a Game of Thrones, and it was a lion doesn't concern themselves with the opinion of sheep. And kind of this whole journey of me, like literally there was no path for me to follow. It was me just kind of trailblazing my own way. You have so many people who are negative, so many people who you think would be happy for you doing something you love, but you learn that's really not the case, unfortunately. So it's kind of like a hard world we live in where people show more attention to you for actually being down and upset than they do when it's like, Mark's happy. Like, I'm so happy for Mark. It's not that way. It's kind of like, wow, he's happy. That's weird. Like, I don't know how to react. So there's a lot of things I dealt with along that path. And what I wanted to try to do through this gym was create more people to do that. You know what I mean? Like, I just try to change people's lives, but my vehicle is through fitness. And everybody, I think, has their own vehicle that they'll do to impact the world in some way. But mine was strength training specifically and fitness in an umbrella. But for the gym, when you come into the gym or when you came to the garage, right away you either were in or you were out. Like there wasn't time to really like think about it. Like, if you saw the floors and you saw, like you said, that handmade equipment and you wanted that elliptical or you wanted that pretty shiny place, I knew right away if it was going to work or if it wasn't going to work. And if people were down to get, down and dirty and be a part of this really cool movement I was trying to do, then they were welcomed right away. So it's not in a negative way to make it intimidating, but it intrigues people. And I think if you step in here right away, it's like, this is where you want to be. You went far enough to kind of get your curiosity perked. And then when you're in here, people love it. So that's kind of what we are. We're a family of lions. Like we look after each other like it's a pride, and it's my gym is small in the sense of I don't want to pack it out with hundreds of people. I'd rather keep 50 to 70 people, get to know them, their life, become family with them, change their life. And that's my mission, and that's fine for what people do. There's tons of different business models, but mine is trying to keep it smaller. I don't want to have, at this point, lots of locations, you know what I mean? So that's kind of why it turned into the Lion's Den and trying to just push those people to impact the world in a positive way and kind of just go through hard times but come out stronger.
Yeah, that's one thing I was going to ask you, actually, because it seems like nowadays everyone's intention is to grow as big as possible and to have 100 different locations in different countries and all that, which is amazing. That's a great goal to have. But it's cool to hear you say that you kind of want to keep it at that 50 to 70 person range and build up a community that's really strong. And was that always your intention, or did you have ideas of wanting to make it bigger? Or
what was funny is when I was talking to my best friend one night, he kind of asked that question, and I never really actually thought about it at that point. Like his mentality is, like the bigger and the more you can create that cloud, the better. And like I said, that's fine. We're all different, and that's what makes us unique. And if we didn't have those multi, business places or mine, it would never work like this. But when I sat down and thought about it, my gut, like I'm a big believer in like your gut feeling. It wasn't to expand like crazy, you know, and I wanted to be able to keep something small. And I think too, in my opinion, it shows a lot about a gym, especially in today's world, that can be a small business and stand strong. You know, like it seems like every month I hear about a gym closing or having problems or something's going on. And like, I never wanted to be that small business that happened to. So I do everything in my power to build that community and, you know, attract certain people here so that it'll always be something and kind of have like a legacy, you know.
And what's interesting too is you can have a huge impact and have a small gym nowadays because we have things like YouTube and Instagram and Skype and Facebook and all this. So you can get your message out to millions or tens of millions of people while still remaining that small kind of exclusive place, which I think is pretty cool. And I think that oftentimes gets overlooked by people. Like they think they have to have a physical presence all over the world to be big, but you can really grow yourself as big as you want online without having to compromise the integrity of your tribe or your pride in this case.
Exactly. Yeah, and like, you know, we kind of have a similar mentor where yours is Elliot Wholesome. Mine was too. Like I used to just, like you were saying, I binge watch his videos all the time, and here's this guy in his small gym. I mean, you were probably one of the, I mean, dude, they were small, right? Like the gyms were not big.
Yeah.
But yeah, and here he has millions and millions of people who hear his message. So that was kind of my approach is in fitness is, you know, I have my gym and I want to keep it small, but I have other, you know, sources of how I'm going to spread that message, you know, through the social media, like you were saying. And that's really been my goal. And just trying to capitalize on that. And I love it and I enjoy it, which is nice too. So it's something that I'm about, not doing it forced to do it. It's just something I really enjoy.
Cool. And when it comes to like programming and what kind of like the types of workouts people do at your gym, how does that work? Because you have, I know, 50 or 70 people there, but do they just come in and kind of do their own thing, or do you have
so this is pretty cool, and I think this is what makes my gym unique. So I've worked at lots of different gyms for over 4 or 5 years, and I saw a lot of things that worked, that didn't work, things that I liked and I didn't like. And for me, there wasn't a strength gym in the area, and I really wanted to be a strength gym. You know, there was like obstacle course racing gyms, there were class gyms, there are CrossFit boxes, but there wasn't a true strength gym in the area. So what I did is capitalize on that market and that niche market, and no one even in the area, like I didn't even really know anything about strongman growing up in this area. So when I opened the gym, what's nice is that there are classes available. So you can take a strength class every day, essentially, at a certain time, where there's a coach, and you go through that class, and it always starts off with like, you know, basic strength movement, and then it goes into like accessory work, and then there's conditioning, for example, right? But during the other hours that it's open gym. So you have a place that has that strength class and that feel of a garage gym, but at the same time, people can come in for their membership and use all this equipment that's great equipment that no other gyms have. So it kind of gives the best world of like a really high-end corporate gym, you know what I mean, where you have this cool different equipment, and then you have the classes, which I liked. And the other thing I do is I put the program up for the whole week. So, I mean, I'm a big key player in having structured programming. I think that, you know, I think it's coming back now, but there was a time where I was really concerned for places because it just seemed very random, and that didn't make me feel too good about people in the hands of those people. So I had the program up, so it's a 4-day split where you can come in and there's 4 designated strength workouts, and it's a program that people can follow. So even if you want to join as a member, but you don't want to take the class and you kind of are like, I don't know what to do, there's always a program available. So it kind of has different avenues for people, you know. And then right now I run strongman specific workouts once a week. As the business grows and I can have more coaches, I want to increase that. But I have the cool piece of equipment that strongmen use, like the stones. I got the axle bars, the log bars, all that kind of stuff. And then, you know, regular dumbbells, regular pieces, basic machinery, and kind of stuff you maybe find in like a CrossFit box too. So it attracts a lot of people maybe from, say, CrossFit, who want to get stronger, and they come to here to supplement their CrossFit programming. Or you have people who want a gym that has different equipment in the atmosphere. We got the painting all over the walls. We got the music. So it's kind of just a home for, I think anybody, depending on what you're wanting to do. But as long as you're kind of buying into the community that I'm trying to set, you're more than welcome.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's really cool. And I think that's going to be something that's going to become more and more popular. I feel like that used to be the way it was. Like if you were going to go to a weightlifting gym, that's all they did there. If you were going to go to a powerlifting gym, that's all they did there. Whereas in more recent years, it's kind of been like, yeah, we do everything. We have the equipment, so you can just kind of do whatever. And CrossFit really helps or built that movement of just kind of doing everything in one location. But I think there is something to be said for locations that are specifically for one purpose. Like if you're going to go to Lion's Den, you're going to get stronger, whether that's through the equipment or the coaching or the atmosphere. And I think that specificity is very important, especially when you're talking about periodizing a program out, because when I was trying to get stronger and I was doing a bunch of different things, it wasn't really working. Like I had to focus solely on weightlifting to get better at weightlifting.
Get better, yep.
Yeah, and for some reason I feel like that's kind of being lost. Like people think they can do conditioning and running and squatting and snatch, and then for some reason their clean and jerk numbers will go up. But that's not really the case. Like you have to be so specific in what you're doing in order to see an increase in exactly what you want to increase. So I think that's what's interesting about you is you came from a very athletic background, and then you said you got into weightlifting and then transitioned a little bit into strongman, but you kind of still continue to weightlift. So how has being an athlete and being a weightlifter helped you excel in strongman?
Yeah, so the cool part is, like I said, I was always an athlete, and then CrossFit came out, and I remember I was dating this girl, and she was getting into CrossFit, and it was very foreign to me, but I thought it was cool. So I got into CrossFit, and I was pretty decent at CrossFit. Like I did the open a couple times, and I really liked it, but I was always drawn to the Olympic lifting, and when I would do that, I loved that part of it. And like you were just saying, I was trying to get stronger at weightlifting and doing CrossFit at the same time, and I realized it just wasn't going to work. You know what I mean? And I remember talking to the weightlifting coach at the time, and he's like, you kind of got to make this decision, whether your metcons are going to go down and your weightlifting is going to go up, or your metcons are going to increase and you're going to get better at CrossFit and your weightlifting is going to be okay. You know what I mean? Like your progression may be like this rather than, faster.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing the weightlifting thing, and I really liked that. And when I was doing weightlifting, I was in a competition. So I've competed, say, five or six meets. And the best I've ever hit in competition was, I'm going to say, a 355 or 360 clean and jerk. And then a snatch was around 270, 275, which is still pretty good for being a lighter 105. And that's my official total. And in my one meet, I hurt my knee pretty bad. So I tore my meniscus, and the pain, I couldn't get below parallel in any squats. So being weightlifting, I got these strong legs. If I really can't use them, that's a problem. So I ended up getting my knee scoped and going through that whole process. But when that happened in recovery with my knee, I kind of got back into my old ways of just training for fun, and like there wasn't really too much thought in it, but I always loved pushing sled. I love flipping tires, and I love, using sledgehammers. And I just remembered how much fun that stuff was. And then that kind of progressed into me getting into this whole strongman type deal. And I didn't really know much about it, but it was just so cool to see the correlation of, like we were talking about, how the clean, opening my hips, and the same thing with using, an Atlas stone, opening your hips and getting it over the bar, doing a log clean and press. And just how they complemented each other, I was like, man, this is so cool. And I signed up for my first strongman competition in August, and July, and that was for PA Strongest Man. And I ended up winning that, which was really cool. but then also still doing, on my off days, I would do technique work with the clean jerk and the snatch. So nothing crazy heavy, but I still enjoy doing it for fun. And in the strongman world, whenever you see somebody, doing a log clean, instead of push pressing it or strict pressing it, doing a push jerk or a split jerk, they've never seen anything like that. But that's probably the most, efficient way to get anything overhead. And these guys' shoulders aren't like this, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have that shoulder strength. I got to use my legs. So I'm just trying to be technically efficient in the lifts. But to them, they've never seen anything like that. And I can only imagine if you have those guys who are so strong actually use your legs properly or use your mechanics the way they're supposed to be used, how much weight they can put overhead. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, we may be onto something here, guys. Like, you need to get flexible, you need to get athletic, and you could be clean jerking way more than anybody right now.
Yeah.
So I just enjoy it, man, and I just have fun with it. But the athleticism really does help, especially in strongman, because in a lot of events, you realize these guys are super strong, but when it comes to their gas and their athleticism, it may be lacking. So whereas me, maybe I'm not as strong as them, but I can move faster, it helped me out in a lot of events that I have. And strongman training is a lot of fun. Weightlifting, I felt like could get kind of monotonous and a little bit boring at times. It's really a sport that you have to grind through. Like, those people that you see on the podium at nationals, like, there's just such an appreciation for the amount of hours that they spend training, getting work on. Yeah. It's almost like college. It's just like, you do it, like, and you just keep going through it, man. Like, and if you can get down at the end of whatever, like, you're a champ. So with strongman, it gives me the ability to change up my training. It's never the same. The events are always different, which is cool, where in Olympic lifting, it's just the clean and jerk and the snatch. There's no surprise there. But in strongman, someone could literally create some sort of medley or obstacle or some contraption that you have to do, and it could be a total curveball. So I do enjoy that. But I just try to, through my training, be overall pretty good at strength sports. So it's like, I want to be able to go in and compete in a powerlifting meet and do pretty well. Same thing with strongman. Same thing, even, hey man, like CrossFit. Like, I feel pretty cool signing up for a CrossFit competition right now because I had that experience before. If I place, that's great. But at the same time, I know that my strength isn't going to be a problem.
Right.
And I've seen a lot of people where maybe their lungs are fantastic, or their strength is great, but it's hard to find that middle ground. So that's kind of what I dedicate my training to.
Yeah, that reminds me of the very first weightlifting meet I did, which was just a disaster in the grand scheme of things. But I remember going in the warm-up area, and the guy to my left was Hayden Bow, who...
Oh, really?
Yeah, and the guy...
Oh, right on.
The guy across from me was this guy... I didn't know who it was at the time, but his neck, he didn't have a neck. It was just, he was huge, and he was wearing an Adidas tracksuit. He had headphones on, and he was just so good at weightlifting. He was extremely strong. And anyways, right before I went out on stage, Hayden was like, "Hey man, I think you put your singlet on backwards." And I looked down, and my nipples were just like completely out. I had like the two little thin straps. He's like, "Yeah, I thought you had an old school singlet on there, but I think it's just on backwards." So I had to quickly switch it around. But anyways, the guy across from me was Justin Thacker, who I don't know if you've heard of him, but
yeah.
He was like a national level weightlifter.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But he was also he competed in strongman too, and I remember watching his videos of him doing stone loads and yoke carries, and you could just tell that the strength and the technique he built in weightlifting directly translated over to the stone loading and all those hip-focused movements. So he was the first person who I kind of saw make that transition, but when I saw the stuff you were doing, I feel like that was even like on another level than what he was doing, so that's pretty cool to see.
I think like what I'm kind of leaning towards in terms of programming, especially with athletes who do both, is like, you need to build your raw strength. You know what I mean? And I think that in weightlifting, there's a little bit of it, but there's nowhere near as much as there should be. And even like with CrossFit, like if you went into CrossFit a couple of years ago and you were going to do like some tricep work or whatever, Like, they would look at you and be like, "Yeah, you got to get out of here, brother. Like, this is not going to fly." But now, when you look at the programming, like if you went on some of the top program places, they're putting in like curls. You know what I mean? Or they're putting in like tricep work. So I think they're catching on to it. But what I would get a lot of was going into CrossFit competitions. You know, my lungs were pretty good, but my strength was like that. It was separating me from everybody else. But I did a lot of raw strength work. You know, I was doing, you know, quote unquote, some bodybuilder stuff. But if you can increase your raw strength and still maintain good technical proficiency, imagine how much more you can clean and jerk and how much you can snatch. You know, if you're just stronger than somebody. You know what I mean? So that's kind of just how I program for athletes, you know, that I come across in their program is like, we got to build their raw strength up, you know, and if you can still maintain, like that's what I try to do. I try to get as strong as I can, maintain that skill. Like on my off days, I just work on bar work, some light, you know, clean and jerks or do some blocks and stuff like that. And if I can keep that good speed and still increase my strength, I feel like that's like a really good combination, you know, that helps me.
Yeah, because if you can squat more and if you can deadlift more, and like you said, you can continue to keep that athleticism in it, then yeah, 100% you're going to be able to increase your lifts. And I don't think people realize that. I think they kind of get enamored with working on like just their snatch, just their clean and jerk. But like we said, when it comes to the work that it takes to put yourself on a podium, people don't want to show up for that because, like you said, it's boring, it's monotonous. It's like you think about your workout beforehand and you're like, I do not want to do that. Like,
dude, it's an Olympic level sport. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like if it's an Olympic level sport, you just know, like, this is serious business. I mean, there's not stone loading in the Olympics. Like, it's like that's, you know what I mean? Like, it's the clean and jerk and the snatch. And I have to talk to people all the time, and it's kind of like a wake-up call, but, you know, even like when I had John North, and he was telling me about his training sessions. Dude, like, we're talking 10-hour training days. You know, like, they didn't have a life. It was, you're in the gym, like, the people you were in with that gym, they're like your brothers, like, literally, because you don't see anybody else. And, you know, that kind of just put it in perspective. Like, you go to lunch with them, you come back, you train. You didn't know anything else. And when you watch the Olympic teams or Bulgarians, like, when you hear what they talk about, like, it's, you know, even in Bulgarian program, if you know about that, it's just they work maximal levels all the time. And it wasn't like maximal if kind of feeling it. It was like, no, like, if your max was 300 in a snatch, like, you had to hit 300 in a snatch almost every other day.
Yeah.
Like, so
yeah, that's insane. And I don't think people realize that. Like, you can see people do a snatch or see someone do a big clean and jerk, but they just don't understand the amount of work that goes into it. Even just transitioning into training twice a day is too much for most people to do. Like, they don't have that work capacity that a lot of people at that level have. And I think where that starts is just having a background in athletics. Like, for you playing field lacrosse and other sports like that, and martial arts especially, you had that kind of discipline and you had that work capacity coming into CrossFit and coming into weightlifting. Whereas nowadays, a lot of people try and skip that whole phase of just generally preparing yourself and becoming an athlete and go right to powerlifting and right to weightlifting, which I think causes a lot of problems. Is that something that you see at all with people, or
I definitely just think a lot of people just don't know what it takes. You know, like we're saying, like, bottom line, like, you can even look at it from like a business perspective. I get people all the time who are like, man, like, I would love to do what you do. Like, how did you do it? And I'm like, man, sit down. Let's talk for 4 hours. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like it doesn't just happen like that. And they make it seem, you know, and I love what I do and I love the training. But like you said, man, there are days, and I don't want people to misunderstand this, like, I hate training sometimes. Like, it really is just the truth, you know? Like, the thought of having to clean and jerk over 300 for a couple times, like, it hurts, you know? It's like, but that's what you have to do to get to that next level, you know? It's like with business, you know, like, you have to take certain steps that are tough and you may not necessarily want to do, or they put you in a very uncomfortable position, but it's what you have to do. Like, I tell people, if you don't like eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, you may not want to open a gym. You know what I mean? Like, if you like if you want to go buy, I don't know, Lululemon shorts, like you may be sticking with Marshalls or whatever, whatever store, like your thrift shop. Like it's just the way it is. Long term, yes, long term you can have that business. Long term you can be on the podium, but it's like you got to have that strong reason why, which I know a lot of people talk about. And it's not just like, oh, I want to be strong. It's like you got to figure out something deep within you that's going to make you push past where everybody gave up. Like that's simply all it is you're just going to push past where people said, I'm good. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's like, what does it take to get past that? But yeah, with training, like I just tell people the kind of the same thing. Like, listen, like this is an Olympic level sport, especially when it comes to weightlifting. You know, people do this for years and years and years. So don't be super frustrated with yourself when you don't get it right away. You know, it's going to take time. But also know, like, you're going to have to put in a lot of work. You know, like people see, yeah, there's a 345 snatch. Okay, but I've been doing it for 3.5 years, you know, nonstop. Like I woke up and that's what I eat, slept, and you know, I breathe. So that's what it took to get there. But
exactly.
Yeah, we have a walk.
Yeah, and that's the crazy thing about it is it takes you to very weird emotional places. I remember one time I was training alone. It was probably a Saturday night, and I was doing front squats, and my friend came into the gym, and he was like, hey, what's up? How are you feeling? Whatever. And I was like, I feel like crying right now. And I was kind of joking, but like I felt very emotional, and I felt like crying because it just was very difficult to make myself do that. And you're by yourself sometimes, and it's not fun, and it hurts, and all this kind of stuff. So it's interesting because all that emotion you build up, when you do have those moments of hitting a big lift or competing and achieving a goal, there can be like a very huge emotional release after that.
Yeah.
And the only way you get that feeling of ecstasy or that feeling of achieving something is going through that grind that not a lot of people are willing to go through. And the only way you're going to get yourself to go through that is, like you said, with a good reason why. Because as soon as things get hard, it's kind of easy to say, if you don't have a good reason, like, what's the point? Like, I don't want to do this. It's not worth it.
Definitely. Yeah, there was it's funny you say that because probably like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I've noticed, you know, the bigger you get on social media, like I wake up, dude, like sometimes the messages I get from people, you know, social media, it's just, I'm like, I don't even understand how somebody could even say these things to me. And you want to say like, oh, it doesn't bother you, but it definitely bothers you. You know what I mean? Like you can respond a certain way, but at the end, I'm like, man, like I'm like the nicest guy. This guy just went out of his way to say something horrible. But I was snatching, and I was by myself, and I think I actually lift the best by myself. And when people left, I was just like, you know what, I'm going for like a heavy snatch. And I went all the way up to, at that point, it was 335. And this message was actually from somebody close to my family. And anybody says something in your family, like I feel like it just hits your heart a little bit differently. But I was snatching, and I hit a 335 snatch, dude. And like you said, it was the most, like, you know, I felt like just amazing. And I stood up, and I took all the things I was feeling and all those emotions, and I put it in that barbell. You know what I mean? Like that was my way of kind of showing that person like what I was about. And I put it down, and I started crying. Like, and I don't really cry much. And I'm just like, boom, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, what, you know what I mean? But yeah, like I had those moments just even with the business. You know, we talked about, like, I had a gym that didn't even work. Like my first big gym that I was trying to open up before this one, like it failed, you know, like that, like how do you handle that, you know? So, when I go through stuff on a daily, I'm just like, man, if I can get through that, or I can use that to fuel what I'm doing, then it's really just you're pouring your heart and your soul into it, which I'm sure you know all about. You're the same dude. So that's why it's cool when you can talk to people like this, because you know, like, that they've been through it. They went into the deep and the dark, but they saw the light and they keep going for it.
Yeah, 100%. And the first time I experienced that was actually when I was doing triathlons, and that training is very different from weightlifting, but it's very much the same too, because a lot of the time you can be alone, and a lot of the time you don't want to do it, and a lot of the time it's very, very difficult training. It's a grind. And I remember finishing my first race, and I was driving home, and I had to pull the car over because I started crying, because that was the first time in my life that I truly felt like I had pushed myself to another level. Like I had done things I didn't want to do in terms of the training. I had sacrificed a lot. I had pushed myself, and when I reached that point of realizing that new person that I'd become, it's very emotional. Yeah, it's huge. And I think if, like you're doing with your gym, you're allowing other people to experience that growth, and that's one of the most valuable things that you can give someone, just showing them that they can make themselves as good as they want, but they can also become as shitty as they want too. Like you can actively make yourself a bad person in the same way you have control to make yourself a good person. So if you can teach people that through weightlifting or strongman or just strength training in general, whatever your avenue is, I think that's the best gift you can give to young men and young women today, especially young men. It seems like a lot of people don't have a purpose or a path to follow.
Yeah, something's going on with the world today, I feel like. But yeah, like, you know, I just want to do that for those people. But question, when you were doing those triathlons, did you ever get like super euphoric feeling from running that much?
Yeah, yeah. Every time I would go for a run, afterwards I'd feel great, and sometimes during the runs I'd feel really good too. But for me, I naturally just have more of like a runner's style of body, and I was always drawn to that kind of stuff as a child. So playing soccer and hockey, and these are all like really aerobic sports. So yeah, I feel really good after I ran all the time, which is why I think I'm starting to gravitate a little bit back towards that kind of stuff.
A friend of mine, she runs, you know, like the 100-mile ultra races, and she always talks about kind of like when you're going so long that your body's just moving, your mind's kind of just going off. So I didn't know, like, I've never pushed that far, but I mean, she always talks about it, and I've heard other experiences, so I didn't know if you kind of went through something similar like that.
Yeah, I've never done a 100-mile race or anything like that, but it's a really cool type of mindset you can get into. Like, there's different types of mindsets you can have when you're racing. Like, one part of your mindset is going to be calculating your pace that you're on, how much distance you have left, like a very analytical style of mind. And then the other style of mind you'll get into, I feel like, is very primal. And like when I was doing my training runs, there'd be just like spit all over my road. Like I'd be yelling. If I was by myself, I'd be yelling as I ran, just like going nuts. And then there'd be moments, like I said, where I was very analytical. So your mind goes through very different levels of, I don't know, it's not levels of consciousness, but you go into different states of mind. And I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, you definitely get a euphoric feeling sometimes when you're running.
I ran 10 miles one time for a CrossFit workout. Yeah. It's like ridiculous. And kind of like you were saying, like I love, I mean, my music's always changed, but I really like rock and like heavy rock. But I remember when I ran 10 miles, my music choice was the Lord of the Rings soundtrack.
Yeah.
And I swear that made my running better. Like visually, like I thought I was going to battle. You know what I mean? Like you were saying, there's probably boogers and like I was just animalistic. It's just funny you say that because I can totally relate. When I've never done that before, but that totally made a difference in my run. So listen to it.
Yeah, 100%. And it goes back to that idea of when you were talking about training is just having fun with it. When I was in the depths of really focusing on my endurance, a lot of my runs weren't that enjoyable. Like you'd have a certain distance and time, and you'd be doing intervals. But I'd always make sure to have a run where I just had fun. So I literally just like put on my shoes, leave the house with no intentions of what to do, just have fun. And I just jog around the neighborhood, run up hills, run around the park, swing on the monkey bars, and just kind of enjoy myself. And I found that really broke up the monotony of my training a lot, and that helped. So if anyone is feeling beat down in their training, I think something you can do is just go back to something you like doing as a kid or something you enjoy doing, and that can just make all the difference in your training. I think people like to go hard all the time. They like to pretend they're a beast and like all this kind of stuff.
Being a man.
Yeah, exactly. But sometimes you just want to have fun and like be a kid again. So
yeah, I definitely I see that now, and that's funny you say that too. Like totally side topic, but being a man is, so much different than what people think these days. And like you said, like I think it's more manly sometimes to go and do that, like when you need to go do that, rather than push to the point where you're just breaking yourself down. Like, so yeah, I've been through all sorts of those phases and cycles, but yeah, I'm at that point, man.
Yeah, and it's crazy too, because I got married recently, and over like the last year, that learning process of like what it takes to support someone and to be there for someone, it totally shifted my mindset of what it means to be a man or what masculinity means, because most of the time it means doing things that I feel like would be like weaker things to do, like sharing how I feel and letting Julie know if I'm stressed out or if something's worrying me, where like from the way I was raised, I guess it was always kind of like, don't talk about that and just like pretend everything's okay, everything's good. But the more I've learned about her, the more I've learned that she likes when I'm able to be vulnerable and I'm able to share with her. But I think for a lot of guys, and me especially, it's kind of like, don't tell anyone what's wrong, just push through, and that is what being a man is.
Yeah, no, definitely. I would agree. And I used to be stuff like that, like you were saying. That's the way I always was. But I feel like that led to so many more problems in my own head than it did if I ever just expressed things. But even like in a train concept, like there's so much more of that movement stuff going on now. You know what I mean? Like Ido Portal and people getting into flow. I think, is it Max Shank? Is that his name?
Yep.
Yeah, so he's doing stuff like that. And when you look at those guys, man, like they're like the epitome of like, man, you know what I mean? Like when they do that stuff, man, I'm like, wow, like I may be strong, but I'm not strong like that. You know what I mean? So I think it's cool to see in the fitness and health culture kind of stuff like that popping up. And like even with McGregor, I think he was working with Ido Portal. Yeah. It's just kind of cool how stuff like that has been different, where if someone did that, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago and they were a man, like I don't think it would work. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just being honest, like now it works and it's cool and you can respect it. But then it's such a mindset of people. But
I think it really is. Julie and I were talking about that last night. She was asking me about Ido Portal because he was on that podcast with Lewis Howes and she couldn't really get into it. She was like, this is boring. So, but I was just trying to explain to her what he does, which is, it's kind of difficult to explain, but when I kind of got to the root of it, it was what he does is he allows people to fully express themselves in their bodies in a way that if you don't have that strength or you don't have that range of motion, you're not going to be able to fully express how you feel, or like you won't be able to fully express your strength or your flexibility or your vulnerability. And I think in a lot of styles of strength training, you can express yourself, especially in like weightlifting, strongman, powerlifting. You can express yourself, but you're strong in one very rigid type of way, whereas where this like more movement culture stuff is going, I feel like that really is kind of the future of what fitness or what strength is going to be.
Yeah, it was kind of fun. Like, I know I have probably till I'm like 35 really to be competitive with the strength stuff, and then I just know my body can't handle it. But like when I'm done with that, it's like Max Shank stuff. You know what I mean? Like Ido Portal, like that's really what I want to get into. I just know like at this phase, that aggressive, I'm going for the strength thing, and then I'm going to shift that way probably when I'm done. But it's funny that you bring that up. Because when I have my underground strength certification with Zach Evanesh, so he kind of started it. But when I went and I talked to him, he had talked about when Elliot Holst came and did a seminar, and this was like years ago. I think probably when Elliot just started, and he said there were like 20 grown men in the room, and Elliot started doing his like, dance and rhythm and stuff, and he's like, by 5 minutes in, we're all crying. He's like, everybody is just crying with their shirts off and they're dancing, and he's just like, I never would have expected that in my entire life. But he's like, but it was like an experience I'll never forget. He's like, it was so cool. But I was like, yeah, like that's just funny because now you can see that happening. But like 10 years ago, like that probably blew everybody away. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, actually, Zach, he came to the new strength camp one time, and that was there's a lot of YouTube people who would come and visit strength camp, and no offense to them or anything, but when Zach Avanesh came, that was like the biggest fanboy moment I ever had, because Zach is
he's like dad, you know what I mean? Like he like I think it was like him and then Elliot, you know, like Elliot was. I remember watching old videos, and like Zach was like, oh, this guy Elliot, and it's so funny, man. Like that, like I was the same way. I was like, oh.
Yeah, I went up and shook his hand, and I remember Elliot was throwing some equipment out, and he like kicked an old bench or something like that. He's like, we're gonna get this shit out of here. And then Zach's like, whoa, no. He's like, you can't throw that out. He's like, those are your roots right there. Like that's your old school stuff. And I was like, he is exactly like his videos.
He's actually like, hilarious. You know what I mean? When you meet him in person, like, he's just funny. He's like a funny dude, but super cool. Yeah, and that's like really like he stemmed, I guess, a lot of the stuff I did with the garage. Like that was all, his kind of training principles, because that's where it all came from. And the kind of same thing with Elliot. Like that's really what I had in the 2 bar garage, was everything that they were doing and kind of learning how to do it minimally. But yeah, like those guys were super cool. They're like the founding fathers, I guess, kind of that movement.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the cool thing too, because their message really ended up transcending strength training. Like they were strong guys and they competed in their respective strength sports, but what I think attracts people to them, and when you see the kind of people who are attracted to them, it's people who some people don't even train and they're attracted to their message, which I find is pretty interesting. But when it comes to changing your life and changing who you are, I think physically, that changing yourself physically is first and foremost. I know it does seem very vain and it seems very external, but when people do get deeper into it, they realize that they can take that dedication and that drive and that hunger and transfer it into other areas, which is why it's cool to see you already opening your gym and leading a group of people and simultaneously training yourself at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. But so what, with weightlifting, like, so you're just training for the endurance stuff now? Is that what you're doing? And then, all right.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out, so then do you still weightlift at all or no?
Yeah, so what happened was I weightlifted for 2 years straight. That's all I was doing. I'd push sleds occasionally, and my coach would yell at me, but so that's what I was doing, and I competed 5 or 6 times in that 2-year span. And then I went down to Texas to go to Fire Academy down there, and they had us running every single day, doing a lot of calisthenics stuff, a lot of endurance stuff, wearing all our bunker gear up and down drill towers. So my Olympic lifting started suffering a little bit just because I was missing days of training and I was running so much. So when I got back to Canada after that, I tried to start weightlifting again, but there's nowhere really around here to train, and I don't have a platform in my garage gym yet. So I started running more, and I started pushing more sleds, and I started doing more of the style of training I used to do. So I still do weightlift. I do pretty much every single workout. I'll snatch or I'll do clean and jerk, but usually what I do now is like EMOM style stuff. So the weights stay a little bit lighter, but my volume is going up and I'm like working my muscular endurance a little bit more. So I'm still weightlifting a lot, but I'm just not doing a traditional weightlifting program. Like I'm not working up to a heavy snatch and then doing like heavy triples of back squat and then rolling it a day.
Yeah, I just started doing some waves. So like I like doing the wave kind of cycle where I'll do almost like every minute on the minute, but I'll start off at like 60%, gradually work up, trying to keep the same bar speed.
Yep.
And then I'll work up to a heavy, and then I'll back it back down, but still trying to keep that same bar speed, even though it's either heavy or lighter, you still got to treat it the same.
Yep.
But yeah, so that's kind of what I've been working on. But I just tried to, after I saw the national total, it's 305 for a 105 right now.
Yep.
And I trained yesterday morning. We were talking about kind of like double training. So yesterday was a pretty heavy day. I was doing like axle bar deadlifts, and I was working up to like as many as I could do with 405. And then I worked up at the end of my training to a heavy single, just because in strongman, like you could have an event where you're smoked and you got to pull something heavy. So I was trying to simulate the training, and then at night when I saw that total, I got all amped up, dude. And I went in there and I think I hit it was a 275 in pound snatch, and it was like a 345 clean and jerk. But like I was like, man, my work capacity is not this. Like I need to get better at trying to dial up that work capacity, but. If I can do nationals, that would be cool. But right now, I'm focused on strongman training. But it was pretty brutal. I was a little upset with myself, but it's all right.
Yeah, that's awful not being able to max out after maxing out on deadlifts. That's weird. That's strange.
You're the Bulgarians, man. Like every time I watch the documentary, I forget what it is.
School of Champions.
Yeah. Those guys, man, talk about like. Soul crushing.
Yeah, they're basically slaves. It seems like
they were. Oh my gosh, yeah, that was nuts.
Yeah.
What are you up to right now? Like, are you have work wise?
Yeah, so I just got back from Texas doing Fire Academy down there, and then to get hired in Canada, there are like a whole bunch of certifications I had to get. So. I had to get my emergency medical responder certification, which I'm finishing up next week, actually. And then I had to get a truck driving license, which is a huge process. And then I have to do a whole bunch of testing. So I've been doing that, and then also working at a gym called Athlete Farm Training, which is just a local gym, and they train pretty much exclusively hockey players. So I've been working with athletes there, hopefully starting to teach them a little bit of weightlifting, because I think that would help them out a lot, and they don't have a coach doing that. And I've also been helping them out with the online side of things. So I built them their website, and we're going to start doing a YouTube channel for them, because they didn't have any of that. And then also I'm still doing my own business, so doing the podcasts, and I'm releasing a program coming up for people who want to go into Fire Academy, because when I went into it, I was really prepared and I was nervous that I wasn't going to be, but then when I realized like the level of fitness that other people were at heading into it, some people were just terrible. Like we'd go for a little run and they'd be puking on the side of the road and things like that. So I've been developing a program just for people who are preparing to go to Fire Academy. And yeah, so I've just been podcasting with a lot of people and working at a gym. Yeah, so it's been going good. So
you did the internship with Strength Camp. So how would you say, like, after Strength Camp, that stuff has helped you with, like, what you're doing now? You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm curious to learn is, like, from that experience, how has it helped you grow, like, as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so it's in terms of my confidence and how I feel like I can help people, it's been exponential growth, because even the opportunity I have now with the gym I'm working with, I basically just walked into the gym one day and sat down with the owner, and I was like, look, like, here's what I can offer you in terms of like building your website, building you a YouTube channel, like systematizing your business, because he didn't really have a system at all in place in terms of how he was training people and what his sales process was like and what his marketing was like. It's all kind of non-existent. So in terms of running a gym, I feel like I know exactly what you need to do. So
that's huge.
Yeah, so I was able to just kind of step in and help him in all these different ways and open that opportunity up for me just in a time when I was just coming back from school. I had no money. I didn't really want to open my own gym because I realized from strength camp how much work and how much time that takes. But yeah, it just gave me the skills to be able to like go to this guy who already has a business and say, like, I can help you and here's how I can help you, and then actually put things into place. So just on the business side, that's what it did for me in terms of my growth as a person. That's where I met my wife. Julie was an intern there as well.
Wow, so, nice. That's awesome.
I used my power and influence as a coach there to convince her to marry me. And, so yeah, I met my wife down there. I met some lifelong friends down there, and I really learned what it takes to be an entrepreneur from just watching Chris, especially. He's one of the most driven and hardworking people I've ever met, and he's just a visionary, really, when it comes to creating the life that he wants. So just being around people like that, you learn what it takes, and you learn which habits you need to implement in your life to take the next step, from getting up at a certain time to planning your day the day before to like having minimums you need to hit every day for working on your own business and then this business and like all that kind of stuff. So yeah, just learning from the people who worked there was huge too.
So something I guess you can probably relate to this for me in my business was realizing how much stuff I kind of had to either get rid of or kind of like cut it out of my life or change, I guess, in my life to really make what I wanted to happen. You know, like, and I think a lot of people don't understand that is you can't hang around certain people, you know, if this is where you want to go. And it's not that there's anything wrong with those people. It's just that it's just not what you need to be around to go in that direction. Or just even in a, like, just life kind of, but I just had to really restructure my life. Like you were saying, it's like, can you make your bed every day? You know, can you do these little things that ultimately affect your business, which you may not look at as a normal human being, but really when you look at it long term, it kind of does affect my business. But I've even like, I have friends, but I've cut out a lot of people, you know what I mean? Like, not in a bad way. It's just like, I can't be caught up doing certain stuff because this is how bad I want it. And it kind of all comes full circle with training or your goals or with the business. But I would definitely say that. And I think even in terms of like the business, like you were saying, especially in the gym industry, is people don't understand that they have to be marketers and not just, I'm going to open up a gym and it's going to work. Like, that doesn't happen. And I did kind of have that attitude, like, I'm going to open the doors and people are going to come in, but reality sets in, and that's not how it works these days.
Yeah, exactly. And it was funny because I've had a big shift in that mentality recently, especially since I just started consistently podcasting. I heard a guy say, how do you expect to change the world if you can't even clean your own room? And I had to open my bedroom door, and I was floored by how messy it was. So that day, I got all my work done, and then the first thing I did was I went and cleaned my room. And I kid you not, ever since, that was like 2 weeks ago a week ago actually, I did that. And I have felt a lot different since I started doing that consistently. And people may hear that and think, that sounds dumb, because they want to do the big thing first. Like, they want to open their business or they want to get huge on YouTube or do any of those things, but like, you want to do that, but you can't even clean your room. So like, you need to tackle those small problems that life gives you, and then you can move on from there. So
absolutely,
when you do enter into opening a new gym or starting a YouTube channel or starting a podcast or any of these things, once you do that, your life is going to like show you other things you need to clean up before you can succeed at those bigger projects that you have that usually involve helping other people. And what it comes down to is, you want to help other people, then help yourself first. Make yourself that type of person who, when other people ask for help, you can actually give it, instead of being too caught up in your own bullshit.
Yeah, totally. No, that's it. That's a huge point. But yeah, I was the same way, man. Like, even if it was making my bed every day, and there's times even when you don't want to, but if you've done it so many times, you're about to leave, and like you see your bed is kind of, it's not made, and there's something in your brain that's like you're just bugging out, and you got to do it. But it's like training, you know, like you know you should train, then you have this mind battle, and then you go and do it, even though it sucks. But yeah, it's the same just with running the business. Like, a lot of people don't realize there's such a back end to everything, and like training people is what I love to do, but it's like, do I want to do payroll all the time? No. Like, do I want to do all that other crap? No. But you do it, and it makes you better. It makes the business better. It helps with every rep you earn on the platform, every rep you're doing in training. But yeah, it's just so funny, man, how it's like you can use that whole just example of like life. It's so cliche, but it's so true. You know what I mean? Just like little things adding up and changing your life, but it starts with just the basics and the minimal.
Yeah, and like, what have you learned about yourself in opening a business? Because you're fairly young for someone starting a gym, I would say. What would you say, or what kind of person did you have to be or become to open a gym? And then who have you become since you opened that gym?
Okay. So the hard part too is being young. Like, I won't even deny that, is because I'm 24. So a lot of the people that I work with are older than me. I'm very mature, but at the same time, sometimes it's you have to be the alpha, I guess, however you want to, really look at that word. But it's like I'm giving instructions to older individuals, and other people can take that certain way. So you have to adjust yourself with, just how that feels. I would say that's just kind of been like a small one, but with the whole business kind of not working out the first time I was trying to open it, it really just put a test on like how far can you push, man? Like, could you want to give it all up? Do you want to go get a comfortable job, or do you want to keep pushing on this dream? And I really just had to sit down with myself and come to that decision. Like, do I want to just give it up because it'll be easy? I can go get a job and I can make good money and don't have to worry about that. Or am I going to put myself through hell and just keep pushing and going? So after I came out of the whole experience with that, I felt, like I could do anything. It was confidence. It was I felt a lot better. I would say after I opened up the business, or while I was opening the business, something that I wasn't comfortable with was like negotiating, and talking to like brokers or real estate agents. And, when you do that stuff, you have to work deals out. You have to figure out rates and be kind of, salesy in a way. And for me, like, that was super uncomfortable, and I was very like passive before, but it got to the point where I had to, show up at people's offices, and I had to be like, listen, like, this is how much I'm going to pay, or like, let's do this, or let's do that. And that was very not like me. So now I'm a lot better at it, and also just going to places or contacting people or talking to people has been out of my comfort zone, and that's something that I had to get better at. So yeah, like, now it's like I don't even think about it. I used to have this weird thing where I didn't really talk to people on the phone, but now I got a message, I got to call them right back, or I got to answer it, and I don't really think about it as much anymore. Kind of just like exposure, where you just do it so many times. So that's definitely made me better. And like I said, yeah, just negotiating and being comfortable with I'm young, but like I can't really care what other people think. Like, if this is what I want to do, I have to present myself confidently. And even if people are older in here who may think that they have more entitlement or they're, above me, it's like, this is my home. This is my place. So that I would think is just different from being a younger perspective, where it's like I'm not like 45 and filled with wisdom. You know what I mean? Like, man, this guy's been through a ton. He's old. Like, I got to listen to everything he says, because that's not the way people come in and look at you. They're like, oh, like, you're a kid. It's like, yeah,
20 more years and you'll be there. Don't worry.
Yeah.
You'll be that old guy in the gym talking about back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day when I was playing football. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I'd say that's just the kind of person that I've become, and it's just changed me. It shows me what I'm made of. And every day it's something different. You know what I mean? Like, even right now, I don't try to paint the picture like my gym's killing it. Yeah, I got to go out there and I got to go knock on doors because, emails aren't working. but it's like, to me, that's uncomfortable, but it's something I have to do. So like you said, it's just a small daily challenge of just rising to the occasion constantly and doing that. Or like if there's a problem in the gym, you gotta, I'm a big believer in like confronting that. Like I don't want to have a toxic person in the gym, but sometimes it's hard to go and have that conversation with somebody, like, hey, what's going on, and then like, so it's just little things like that. But in the end, it just helps everyday life. Like you said, talking to your wife, it's like, I'll be able to communicate better with whoever I'm in a relationship with, or, when I have to go buy a house, I'll know how to talk to a real estate agent, and before I wouldn't have had experience like that without this job. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important thing that people miss out on, is that they don't realize that it's always going to be like that. They don't know that it's always going to be work in some regard. Like, you could get better at talking to people, and you will get better at talking to people, but it's always going to be a little bit maybe uncomfortable slightly, no matter how confident you get. And I think people have this misconception that once you reach a certain level as a businessman or as an athlete, that everything comes easy, when really, I feel like the further I've progressed, the more I have to take onto my plate and the more uncomfortable I've had to make myself. So the more you realize that it's going to be constant work, and it's going to be a constant, not battle, but you're going to constantly have to be challenging yourself and constantly evolving, the easier it is to accept that. I think when you have the mentality of, I'm going to work really hard for a short period of time, get myself to a certain level, and then just coast, that's where things start to go wrong.
Yeah, definitely. I would 100% agree with that. And even from my perspective, it's more like managing people. Like, that's its own skill. You know what I mean? Like, before it was just me. And now it's like, if you have people working with you, you have to learn how to manage them. You have to learn how to still get your training in, which is probably one of the biggest issues I'm having right now, is running the business to its full capability and still maintain my training, And it's like, that's a hard thing to do. It's super basic, and you would think it's great, but it's almost like you have to keep it fun and not try to look at it so much like a chore. But that's been, since I've opened this place, the hardest thing for me is, like, it kind of reminds me of those old days working for the pool company. Like, I'm putting in 15-hour days. Like, now I got to train. So it's a challenge. And that's why I try to always be real with people and not make it seem like it's a fairy tale, beautiful. Like, I love what I do, but this is what you got to do to get there. But it can be done. You know what I mean? Like, I always tell people, I'm like, I was your regular guy, Mark's your regular guy, but we're doing it, and if we can do it, then you guys can do it. And it just takes just that constant push. And like you said, you're going to be 50, man. We'll be having podcasts when we're 50. And it's still going to be like, you know what I mean? Like, we just kept having to do it and do it. But it's never going to go away. But it's just going to mold you and make you stronger. It's going to make you better at whatever field, you try to put yourself in.
Yeah, and I think the most important thing that people should draw from that, exactly what you said, is you just have to do it. And I remember I was talking, I think I just talked about this on my last podcast, but I was talking to Julie. I was like, yeah, I want to do like a Tough Mudder, like the competitive division or whatever, but like I don't know which training program to do and all this stuff. And so I'm like, I'm not really sure. And then she's like, why don't you don't even run? Like, why don't you just go for a run?
Yeah.
And then I had to think to myself, yeah, I probably should just go for a run. So when it comes to doing anything from opening a gym to starting a podcast to a YouTube channel, honestly, the best thing you can do is just start doing something, anything. Because that was my biggest thing. Like, I wanted to start a podcast, not even kidding, for 3 years before I started. And finally, I just had to say to myself, like, I'm not worried about the mic anymore. I'm not worried about who I'm going to have on. I'm just going to start doing it. I have this little recorder I have for Skype here now that costs like $30. So I got that, and then I'm just going to keep doing it. And with anything else that I've done in my life, as long as I've put my honest effort into it and been doing something good will come of that. And it may not be what you expect, but you're going to grow from it and you're going to become better by doing it. So, yeah, that's what it's all about. Just do something, anything.
Oh, yeah. I even said, like, with my strongman competition, I did my first one. Like, I can guarantee you there are way stronger people in PA than me. You know what I mean? Like, way more athletic people than me in PA. But they didn't sign up. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what I always tell people. Like, the fact that you sign up and you compete, which anybody who's listening to this, you should be, whether it's in something or I don't care. Like, that's where the money really is competing, because you just, like you said, you learn so much about yourself. But at the end of the day, like, you did it. You're going to do that Tough Mudder. You know what I mean? No one can take that from you. There's a bunch of other people who maybe talked about doing a Tough Mudder, but they didn't do it. So it's like there's memories and that experience that you have. Like, that's yours. That'll never be taken away from you. At the end of the day, people may regret that they haven't done it, but that'll never be a thought in your mind. So I always tell people that who are like, oh, competing will be cool. I'm like, then just do it. Like, we'll go in my office right now and be like, I'll print it out. Like, I'll pay half. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I've done that before, people. I'm like, I'll pay 50% of your sign-up fee just to get you to do it.
Yeah.
And then it's real, you know? But yeah, man, so you got to do that Tough Mudder.
I know, yeah. I got to win, too. But, yeah, that's the craziest thing, because my first weightlifting meet, I was not ready to lift. Like, I had been lifting for 3 months. I hadn't really been doing full lifts from the floor. I was not strong at all. I didn't have a coach, but I did it. And looking back, it was a very hilarious experience, but one that I wouldn't trade for the world, because, like you said, I learned so much for myself. So when I started coaching people, I was always trying to get them to compete, because I knew that no matter what level they were at, they were going to grow so much from that experience of just being on stage and showing people what they have. And like you said, if there's people out there who haven't done that and they don't feel like they're ready, just sign up like you're ready. Even if you're not ready, you can do it. Because in the end, what's the worst that's going to happen?
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, even if your nipples are showing through your singlet, you're gonna be all right.
Exactly. Exactly.
What's actually so funny is, like, when I first competed, one, I didn't have a coach, so I literally looked at my girlfriend and I was like, "You're my coach," and she's like, "What?" And I was like, I wrote her name down, and she's never even done Olympic, she had never even seen it, and my singlet was too small, like you were saying, but I had a T-shirt over it, so I have this. It's actually, hold up, right here. I have this hook grip poster.
Of you?
And that's me. But you can see I have a T-shirt on over top of
That's you?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Is that a camo singlet?
Oh, it's a camo singlet because I'm super cool.
And are those Reebok lifters?
Those are Reebok lifters.
Wow.
Yeah. But I put that T-shirt on because my nipples too were actually, I think, about to hang out of my singlet. And I remember asking, because I was a novice. I was like, "Is it cool if I wear a T-shirt?" I was like, "I'm really self-conscious." Like, yeah, it's fine. but yeah, I have this poster, and it's hilarious that you were saying that, because I was just looking at it in the corner of my eye, and I was like, "Yeah, I look like a dweeb."
How did you get that poster?
It's because I won the competition. So when you won, you got a hook grip it was like a video and a picture, and then it was like a massage for an hour, which I never used, but I got it. Yeah, so that was cool.
Big money in weightlifting, eh?
It was huge. I mean, I've opened the gym off of that day. Yeah.
Sign the poster and sell it.
Oh, yeah. No, I just keep it here to look at it, because I'm like, I will never look like that ever again on a weightlifting platform. I got lime green lifters, camo shorts. Oh, yeah, it was a mess, dude.
I wasn't that bad. I think I had tie-dye socks on, though, so...
Okay, the sock game was on point. I respect that.
Yeah, it was pretty good. All right, so I think we've covered quite a bit of ground.
Oh, yeah.
And, yeah, just thanks a lot for coming on. I really do appreciate it. And, yeah, we should definitely do it again soon.
Yeah, that'd be great. For sure. Thanks, Mark.
By the soul, die by the soul. If her police was looking for me, I'ma hide by a broad, shooting stars in my pocket. Bitch, sit on my